order, members. April 6th, 2022. We have 3 bills before us. For the record, we do have a quorum. Before we get started on Senator Lang's bill, Senate File 3875, we also are going to be doing the State Gov bill, Senate File 3975, and Senator Newman's Senate File 1154. And we are going to be combining all of them at the very end of the day. So my plan is to work on your bill, Senator Lang, then we'll start state government. We will go into recess at 10:30 because capital investment, or about 10:20, capital investment is going to be meeting on an informational hearing. And then session at 12, and I believe that's just a paper push. And then we'll come back at 1 o'clock. So that's the thought, and we will do transportation last for anybody in the audience that would like to know what we're doing there. We're going to be doing transportation at the tail end. Okay. So welcome, Senator Lang, Senate File 3875.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair and members. Before you this morning, Senator Andrew Lang, Senate File 3875, represents the vehicle bill that we're going to be using this morning. I do have an A2 amendment, Madam Chair.
Senator Ingebrigtsen moves the A2 amendment. It's a delete everything. Questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. A2 is adopted. Senator Lang.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members. The A2 amendment actually represents the bill in its entirety, obviously, as the DE does. This bill has largely 3 sections included, starting with $2 million. $2 million represents the enlistment incentive bonus. This is something that we did, I think Senator Newton described it as gymnastics or a little bit of stretching to try to get this $2 million across the line. I hope the governor appreciates the work that the committee had done to try to get this $2 million of enlistment incentives included in the bill. It had started out as enlistment incentives, was taken off the table when the governor budget came out and did not request it, and then the supplemental budget came out and we reinstalled it via Senator Newton gymnastics in the committee. So that is section 2, so that's reenlistment bonuses. The military has had some issues in the last couple of years with reenlistments, and personally I can tell you that the percentages are down quite a bit from where we within the state of Minnesota would like to see them. That's an effort towards that. Veterans Affairs, so section 3 of the lead-all represents a Senator Miller bill. Senator Miller is the chief author. Ike Horn, Senator Bingham, Senator Rosen, and myself all signed on to the $16.5 million, which is the FFE is the acronym that we use. It's a fixtures, furnitures, equipment that goes into the building. About 3 years ago, we all voted for 3 new veterans homes in Preston, Montevideo, and Bemidji, Minnesota. This is to put chairs, beds, hallway carpeting, things like that inside the building. This represents that bill, the bill 4181. On section 4, which is the vehicle bill, I was the chief author. Thank you to Senator Duckworth for signing on to that with me, the $10.3 million. This is what has been described as a inflator, really, in my mind. And this is the 10.3 that makes whole the $30 million that we spent just a few years ago. Of course, the increase in costs that we've all experienced over the last couple of years, this is to get those projects back to the original design specifications. I do appreciate the department's efforts and to what has been quoted as valued engineering. And valued engineering numbers is really kind of cutting corners to meet costs. And I appreciate the department trying to do that. I think the example that I've used over the time is I'd really like to see steel roofs on these buildings instead of shingles. That is the effort of that section. So that, for the most part, Madam Chair, is the bill in its entirety, plus a section 5 that is has to do with a report due back to the legislature.
Very good. Thank you very much, Senator Lang. I think we will go to Mr. Erickson to run through the spreadsheet. It's very simple.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Simple is probably the right word for it. It's a fairly straightforward spreadsheet this year for the vets area. You'll see on line 7 the enlistment and re-enlistment bonuses that Senator Lang just described. There's $2 million for that in the bill, along with a $1 million annual tail totaling $2 million in the tails biennium. If you go down to line 19, you'll see the Vets Home supplemental funding. The fiscal 22 portion is the second piece that Senator Lang described and is in the bill with an immediate effective date to get that money back out the door and into the home's construction to catch up on those inflated costs. There's a regular rider for the fiscal 23 portion, which is the value-based engineering decisions that Senator Lang was speaking to. And that's really everything that's on the spreadsheet. I think you can find the current and tails columns on your own with this spreadsheet this year.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Are there any questions on the spreadsheet or on the bill itself? Wonderful. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to Senator Lang. Has there been recruitment bonuses before? Is this something fairly new, or?
Senator Lang.
Okay, that's the answer. That's what I mean.
Madam Chair, Senator Ingebrigtsen, no, this is an ongoing, we're always dabbling in trying to keep our people. Most recently, I can tell you that there has been, in several specific key areas within the National Guard, there has been a lot of effort placed upon re-enlistment bonuses, pay bonuses in the meantime, trying to keep people within the military because the civilian sector is competing so, well, to be honest, they're outpaying us. They're outsourcing us. They're using the military as a feeder, and we'd like to keep some of our skilled individuals, some of our senior folks that have been leaving at what we would consider golden years, and that 15, 16, 17-year range they're getting out of the military instead of completing a full career. That is the intent of this. This is an add to the enlistment incentive bonuses.
Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. With that, we have Commissioner Herkey with us. Commissioner, welcome. Would like to say a few words? Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Rosen. It's good to be back with the committee again, and good morning to committee members. Larry Herkey, the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. And I thank you for this opportunity to be able to talk, made some comments on file 3875, which is Senator Lang's veteran homes appropriation. I'd like to thank Senator Lang for his leadership and engagement with veterans issues and ongoing support for construction of these homes. It's been difficult, I can tell you. Now we're in year 7 since we first started this process, and trying to keep up with the escalating costs, inflation, and so forth has been very difficult. The funding included in this bill echoes the governor's bonding recommendation for the agency and is, as Senator Lang indicated, essential to completion and the final outfitting of our homes itself. And it's necessary to open, in order to open the homes. So I basically have enough money to get the home built, but I don't have enough for that FF&E and potential owner's contingency, which we're still seeing issues as they come up at this point. We're about 22% into construction right now. I'd like gratitude also due to Senator Miller for his efforts to provide for the additional funding for those new homes, and I sincerely appreciate the effort to allocate the funding to restore those value engineered items that were taken out early in the process in order to keep us within budget. I am, though, disappointed as the commissioner. It's my job for the supplemental to represent the 304,000 veterans in Minnesota. And I've been privileged and trusted to do this responsibility. In this supplemental, none of the 8 items that were included in the governor's supplemental are included here. And if you would allow me just a minute or two just to touch on a couple of the items.
Absolutely.
We spent a significant amount of time working with the Commander's Task Force, probably more, which is the commanders of the veteran service organizations in Minnesota, to actually feel out and what the needs were for the veterans in Minnesota. We also worked with our county partners, the county veteran service officers, which are critical to our success. We also worked with Minnesota Housing and the Minnesota Interagency Council on homelessness, or MITCH, as it related to our veterans' homelessness situation. And we also leaned into our relationship with the federal VA and tried to push them also to help us in a lot of these areas and find out where we could best work together. Lastly, we worked with our nonprofit sector folks such as the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans, or MACV, which has done great work for us, especially in the veterans homelessness area. The product of this was 8 initiatives that we came up with in the governor's budget. 3 of them are related to veterans homelessness, and they were to try to put the final push to get all of our veterans into homes, because I believe veterans deserve housing. They've probably provided more services to their country and state than most individuals, and they carry with them the mental and physical issues that come along with that. These new funding areas that we're looking at was to provide low barrier housing to our veterans, looking at 100 affordable units, which we think is needed. When we work with a lot of landlords, they want to find ways to screen out candidates. We're looking for a way to screen in veterans and to find a place for them to take an opportunity, a chance on our veterans. We also wanted to make sure that we provide some incentives to landlords to take a chance on our veterans, and I think our supplemental request in that area was appropriate. And lastly, there was a lot of the during the COVID time period, we had this large increase in our amount of veterans that were homeless. We've been able to bring that down now. One of the most important things we've learned is the hotel program that was the federal government and the counties were helping us with has been very helpful. Those are going away now, and we would like the state to pick that up and to keep, at least for a period of time, keep that program, because it's been found to be very effective in quickly getting our veterans through temporary housing and into permanent housing going forward. The second focus item was an increase in 2 areas, Madam Chair. One was the County Veteran Service Officer increase, and the second was a Veteran Service Organization increase. Both these groups do great work, of course, for our veterans. In the area of the veterans, County Veteran Service Officers, we've heard from the counties that they would like to have, besides the base amount we've been providing them since 2013, they would like another amount to be able to either do new programs or enhance existing programs, and we would like to do that on a competitive basis and have these veterans be able to compete, or these counties be able to apply annually for these additional funds. We think that's important to focus on some of the areas like outreach, reintegration, and veterans homelessness being one of the other areas specifically to be able to focus in on. So we think that's important going forward. Also in the area of the congressionally chartered veteran service organizations, they have not seen an increase since 2009. And we're asking for a modest 16% increase sort of on average across the board for those veteran service organizations that do great work within Minnesota. We'd like to see support for a Fisher House in the Fargo VA. The Fargo VA actually is responsible for 17 counties in Minnesota. A Fisher House is sort of like a Ronald McDonald House for veterans. That allows the family members to be close to their veteran as they're going through extensive situations medically at a medical center. And I found out recently also the veterans can actually stay in that if they're receiving outpatient services at the medical center and they have a family member with them. A great news on our Redwood County Cemetery. It's going to open this fall. That's earlier than expected. The bad news is I would have no operational funds to actually man that cemetery, so I would be closing the gates and putting it in a caretaker situation. The challenge there is that it could be considered a breach of the construction grant agreement for Minnesota. We received $11 million from the federal government, a majority of the funding for the cemetery. And one of the things we said we would do is we would provide the actual manning of the cemetery, and once it went into operation, our intent was to have a soft opening this fall, and then start burials this fall, and then in the spring we would move to and more elaborate dedication ceremony. And lastly, the war for the global war on terrorism, of course, has come to the end. We had our 9/11 ceremony last fall on September 11th. We had 48,000 Minnesotans that actually served during that time frame, which is significant. It's our second largest group of veterans in Minnesota right now. And we'd like to see a bonus, a service bonus, be able to be paid to them like we've done in World War I, World War II, Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Persian War. And we believe the same type of bonus should be paid to our veterans for this conflict. Some of these veterans have served on active duty and then came back and served in their Guard. Many of them in the National Guard and Reserves have been mobilized multiple times. I have some friends that actually have been mobilized six times. That's 6 years of service during the 20-year global war on terrorism. So significant contribution from these individuals for both the nation and the state. In conclusion, the provisions of the governor's recommended supplemental budgets as we presented in Senator Lang's Veteran and Military Finance Policy Committee, and they were also heard in Chair Kiffmeyer's State Finance Policy and Elections Committee, and none of those are in the bill before you today. I needed, as the representative for the 304,000 veterans in Minnesota, I need you to understand that. And just deeply concerned as we move forward that we are not providing, especially in some of these unique areas like veterans homelessness, which we're so close. We have just Hennepin County and Ramsey County that have not declared functional zero yet. We're doing well. We just got the note back that St. Louis County has got recognition from the VA and the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. So we're doing good work throughout the state. I just need help to get to the end with veterans homelessness for Minnesota so we can bring all of them home. And I just urge full consideration of the hard work and advice and continued support for our veterans, and now is the time to offer them your support that they need. So I thank you for allowing me to testify today, and I thank Senator Lang for introducing the items to get those homes completed. I think that's a very important part of the mission also. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Just a couple of questions. When is the opening of the homes? Has that been delayed? Because we all know, or if you're in a building project, the joy of building, garage doors are 4 to 6 months out.
We actually have done very well. I've done everything in my physical capability to move these projects forward.
Great.
So as I said, we're about 22% into construction. We're looking at to be a year from the summer that
Okay.
we're looking at opening. So by fall, we should have all the positions open. And again, for the cemetery, we're looking at this fall for our first burial with the cemetery.
Okay, very good. And Senator Lang, it sounds like you're going to have a busy year next year with some of the space funding increases. The grants to the counties that are competitive, that's interesting too. Just what competitive basis that'll be based on. I don't see any other questions, Commissioner. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you, Senator Lang, for your service too. I know, and I know we have an active member, Senator Duckworth, also. So thank you to you both.
Thank you.
For your service. Any further questions? Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam Chair, excuse me, I move that.
Excuse me, Senator Ingebrigtsen. Final comments, Senator Lang. My apologies.
No, it's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I do echo a little bit, actually most of what the governor and the commissioner have. There are several areas of concern within the budget, which, we're going to have to look pretty hard at as we go through conference and eventually again next year. The cemetery in particular, where the operating costs as we go forward are going to be due upon receipt atmosphere. But I appreciate the opportunity to bring 3875 before your committee this morning, and appreciate support.
Thank you, Senator Lang. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam Chair, I move that we lay 387 as amended on the table.
On that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Okay.
Thank you,
very
Madam
much,
Chair,
Senator
members.
Lang. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Kiffmeyer, we're passing out the spreadsheet, so you have a little time to get yourself organized. Okay. You ready, Senator Kiffmeyer?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senate File 3975.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm glad to bring the State Government Policy, Finance, and Elections Committee budget bill here today, and 3975. And I do have the guidelines that I was given were, as far as finances go, is $10 million in regards to the elections portion. And so I have Mr. Erickson here who can go over the spreadsheet for you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The structure of the spreadsheet in front of you is very similar to the VETS one that we just reviewed. The change items begin on line 13 along the left side. There is $6 million in the bill for election grants to locals for some specified purposes that are in Article 1 that we can hit during the walkthrough. There's also $4 million for live streaming or other live streaming certain election-related activities as authorized by the bill. This totals $10 million and gets to the $10 million that Senator Kiffmeyer was just speaking of. The bill also makes one-time an appropriation from last year's session laws by making a Dropbox grant program to local units of government, a one-time appropriation, saving $1 million in each year of the tails. This money is then reallocated to making the election-related activity live streaming portion ongoing as well. There's also a small revenue change in the bill related to cosmetology. This is related to the licensing of some new hair technicians in the cosmetology area, which is expected to start bringing in some revenue starting in fiscal '24.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. And with that, we have Commissioner Showalter here. Good morning, Commissioner. How are you?
Good morning, Chair.
Good to see
I'm
you
fine.
in person.
Likewise. Thank you, Chair, for giving the opportunity to testify before the committee regarding the state government bill. It is a unique pleasure to be able to participate at the Senate Finance level and sort of add some comments. For the record, my name is Jim Showalter, Commissioner of
Commissioner, could you
Minnesota
pull the
Management
microphone a little bit closer to you, please? There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, much better.
Thank you. So that said, I did send a letter just a little bit ago to the committee so that you have sort of a full record of some of our concerns and observations regarding the bill. Chair Kiffmeyer gave me the opportunity to testify the other day, so I appreciate that, and I'll try to keep my comments brief. It's basically 3 points. There's a lot of challenges in state government and running state government and moving forward. One of those that we presented to the State Government Committee is our enterprise resource systems. That we have had a long time financing structural issue in how we fund the backbone of all of our accounting work, all of our HR work, and we can provide this committee with additional information, but the bottom line is this bill doesn't help us move forward. It is responsible for virtually everything that goes through the state. And yet, at this point, we have about a $22 million operating cost on a regular basis. And we have a billing authority that's capped at $10 million. In between, we've been able to make work. Between our base appropriation at MMB, one-time appropriations, anything that's left over in our state agency, and balances in that statewide system account. Unfortunately, we're kind of ending the road on that. And so, not only are we having trouble maintaining the system, but as we all try to think of how to modernize and move forward, whether it's improving our data warehouse or ultimately in modernizing the entire platform, we need to figure out that financing structure first. And so the bill doesn't get us there. So that's one issue I wanted to draw to this committee's attention because it affects this bill and others. Two, I want to just draw attention that while other initiatives that we brought forward aren't included in the bill, and those are detailed in the letter, after I testified, an additional item did come in, which actually, from my opinion, takes us backwards, which is some language regarding the Legislative Budget Office and confidential fiscal notes. And while Chair Kiffmeyer and I may have disagreements about that, I would appreciate more opportunity to work through those things, whether in committee or through the governance group of the LBO, which hasn't met either. And so there's opportunity to move forward here, but we're concerned with moving forward and expanding the authority of the LBO at this time, and look for opportunities to discuss and work through it. And frankly, I'm concerned about the responsibility you have in statute for the commissioner, being responsible for all the finances, but basically taking a cardboard on the front window of the car because I can't see forward because some of the fiscal note information isn't actually verified or coordinated through MMB. So that's just a serious concern. And third is just the item that we carried forward on behalf of the enterprise, which is the COVID response money. It's $500 million. That's in the governor's recommendation. That is also not in this recommendation. None of us knew what we were going to be using some of that money for when the legislature appropriated it last June. And I'm really grateful that you did, because whether it was hospital decompression, whether it was nursing home assistance, whether it was vaccinations and tests, there were so many different activities that we were able to respond to flexibly that we couldn't have anticipated in June. That isn't in what is admittedly a small allocation for the State Government Committee, and I hope that this committee considers that in overall financing. So, Chair, thank you for the chance to make some comments and understand if there's any questions. I'm happy to address them, but otherwise, you have my letter, and happy to take any further comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Could you go back and explain the $500 million that you just mentioned? We were on the 820 amendment. That's technical. So can you reference that again?
I'm just referring to in the governor's recommendations, there was a MMB non-dedicated, it's not an agency request, but it basically is in the governor's request for flexible funding for COVID response going forward, and it shows up in MMB's budget request. So I would assume it would move forward in the state government bill. If it shows up in other places, that's fantastic, but I did not want to miss that.
Mr. Newman.
Madam Chair, I'm challenging my memory here, but Commissioner, I think that was 358 in general fund, and then the balance from the SFRF?
Yeah.
Which, of course, under the SAD position, it's a little bit different. Yeah.
I wasn't specific, Madam Chair, I wasn't specific to funding source, but that Mr. Newman, as usual, is correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, are there any questions for the Commissioner? Do not see any at this time. Thank you very much, Commissioner. And we have our Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Keller. Good morning,
Chair
Mr.
Rosen,
Keller.
members. My name is John Keller. I'm the Chief Deputy Attorney General, and it's a pleasure to be in front of you again. Part of my responsibilities include the hiring, retention, and oversight of the legal portion of the office. I'm here to respectfully request your support for our supplemental budget. Before addressing our budget item requests, I must, however, address lines 5.20 through 6.13, the performance of legal services provision in the bill. The provision, unfortunately, undermines the bedrock constitutional principle of separation of powers. The Minnesota Supreme Court has held that one branch of government cannot attempt to control the discretionary power of the Attorney General in conducting litigation for the state, and we respectfully request that this provision be removed from the bill for our administration and those that follow us. Regarding our budget request, we have testified on many occasions that the Attorney General's office is a net contributor to the general fund to the state. Most recent example is the historic opioid settlement that will bring over $300 million to the state and to local and city governments. Dollars recovered by the Attorney General's office almost always flow to the general fund directly through statute, excuse me, or are returned via restitution to families and small businesses. Money recovered by the Attorney General's office helps you help the state. It does not, however, go to the budget of the Attorney General. Unfortunately, the current general fund appropriation for the AG's office is nearly identical to what it was 20 years ago. When adjusting for inflation, it's a 30% reduction in overall dollars. Running a modern law office and litigation in today's society sadly has become exceedingly more costly, as have the challenges Minnesotans face. Our first request for support is for our operating adjustment, including the retention of talent and investing in critical administrative staffing. Few law offices in Minnesota handle the range and complexity of civil litigation as the AG's office. Our lawyers become experts in specialized area of law, and we need to recruit the best and the brightest, invest in their training, and do all that we can to retain them as long-term public servants. Unfortunately, our attorneys earn less than public attorneys in several metro counties and almost 1/3 less than the U.S. Attorney's Office. This sizable gap in earnings makes it very challenging for us to retain younger and mid-level attorneys, especially when they have high student debt, want to buy a home, or start a family. When they leave, their knowledge and the training we invest leaves with them. We start the recruiting, hiring, training cycle all over again. We'll be better able to stop this preventable loss of talent with your support for our operating adjustment request of $2.3 million in fiscal year 23 and ongoing. Our second request is for investments in the rebuilding of our criminal prosecution capacity to support county attorneys across the state. This is a proven way for all of us to improve public safety all across Minnesota in some of the most complex and serious cases. When and only when a county attorney requests it, the criminal division of the Attorney General's office assists in complex criminal prosecutions. These requests for help come almost entirely from county attorney offices in rural Minnesota, where there may be 2 or 3 attorneys total. They request our assistance to try time-consuming and complex cases like murder, manslaughter, and criminal sexual conduct. With your help, we can say yes to more of these cases. Unfortunately, our criminal division's capacity to help is severely limited. Previous administrations deprioritized the criminal division to the point where we were down to 1 full-time prosecutor. 25 years ago, there were 12. We're looking, with your support, to add 7 attorneys and 2 legal assistants. Don't take my word alone on this, but look at the letters of support from county attorneys all across the state, as well as the Minnesota County Attorneys Association. In closing, we respectfully request the office's supplemental request of $4.156 million be included in Senate File 3975 to retain our talented staff and to expand our criminal division. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, appreciate your testimony.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to respond so I can be sure.
Senator Kiffmeyer. Didn't sound like you.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to be clear that the item in this particular bill that's being referenced by the Deputy Attorney General is in regards to the funding. So the plain language says here, the sole source of compensation paid to employees of the Office of the Attorney General for performing legal services on behalf of the state shall be from the appropriations provided under this chapter or from an appropriation by law. And so, Madam Chair, this does not impinge on the authority of the county attorney to reprioritize the Office of the Attorney General to, as they have done so already, they have shifted from 1 FTE, 1 attorney, to 3 in the prosecutorial area. So I believe that the information we have here, and also I think that the main thing is to make clear that we have, that the authority of the Attorney General remains intact even with this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator, I don't think this question is for you. However, the Assistant Attorney General maybe can answer this. With regards to the section that he was concerned about, I sat on a committee where the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Public Safety co-chaired for quite some time with regards to police and police response and prosecuting police shootings. And it was very clear to me what was the end game there was to be able to, for the Attorney General, in so many words coming forward and saying that he wanted to, or would like to see the prosecution of, oversee the prosecution of the police shootings that have gone on in the state. And I know of at least 3 that did. One was from Hennepin County, one from Ramsey County, and I think the other one was Washington County. My question to you is, the amount of hours that are expended on those particular cases, are they paid for by the state of Minnesota, or are the counties who are requesting the assistance paying for that?
Madam Chair, Senator, under the statute, the Attorney General's office does not have original jurisdiction to prosecute cases, crime. At the invitation of county attorneys, our office can assist, and that goes to the heart of my testimony in building our capacity. The practice of the office has been, when requested by a county attorney's office, that county pays for the costs of litigation. So if there are special experts or costs outside of the hours of our staff, those counties pay for those costs. Otherwise, the staffing time to bring those cases is paid for by the Attorney General's office and the retention of our staff.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Follow-up. So could you give us an idea at all with the 3 prosecutions of and I'm not saying whether that's right or not wrong, I'm just wondering if the office has any idea what kind of resources were spent on prosecuting those cases. But you're telling me that the counties actually pay for part of that. Can you tell me what percentage of, or anything like that?
Deputy Attorney
Madam
General.
Chair. Senator Ingebrigtsen, the Chauvin prosecution obviously being a prosecution unlike any other that we're talking about in terms of resources and investment. The cost to the Attorney General's office in terms of staff time was not anything greater than, we had no additional budget to pay for that. I don't have the number off the top of my head. The experts in that case, which were many, were paid at a 50% rate with funds from Hennepin County. But I can't get back to you on overall estimates of expenditures in that matter. In other cases.
I'm sorry, which one was that, Madam Chair?
In the Chauvin prosecution
okay.
in Hennepin County. It does raise, I think, part of what is challenging in the policy provision in this bill that could be interpreted to prevent our office from using pro bono attorneys. There were several attorneys who provided services at no cost to the county or to the state of Minnesota in that case. We have concerns if this provision were to be enacted into law that it would prevent us from using pro bono attorneys, not just in matters like this, but across the office.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam Chair, if I could, just one final question. I know in dealing with the environment law, having to put out a sizable amount of money every year through the MPCA and the DNR for legal services, I actually conveyed that concern to Attorney General Ellison in a meeting, that why we would go to actually Washington, D.C. To hire attorneys for environmental legal cases, and I guess it has been something of a practice of the Attorney General's office in Minnesota for quite some time to do that, because they don't have anybody there that's qualified to deal with environmental issues, because they become very, very sensitive and frankly quite political. So I was quite concerned about that, but I understand that in talking with the author of the bill that it's probably better to go out than it is to stay inside for that, but I know it becomes very costly. And has there been any talk about that in your office at all, about moving towards that direction? Or?
Madam Chair, Senator Ingebrigtsen, I'm proud of the work that our solicitor has taken on to review all of our contracting with outside counsel. It is from matters as mundane as car accident cases where we don't have that expertise, and it's cheaper actually to retain counsel with specialized expertise, to matters like the environment that you've talked about. One of the underpinnings of a process that she and the Attorney General's office have spearheaded is to do that through a competitive process, and to do everything we can to both represent the needs of the citizens of Minnesota with the best quality legal services possible. And sometimes that does mean we have to go outside of the office, but to also do that at a favorable rate. So, reviewing and competitively bidding for opportunities is part of a process that we've instituted in any case that goes to outside counsel, including environmental. And as you mentioned, Senator Ingebrigtsen, some of the matters are specialty and require an expertise that we currently do not have internally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just
Senator
real quickly, I look forward to those numbers, maybe
Yeah.
on the Chauvin case as well as the other two very high-profile cases. If you could give me the numbers on that,
Absolutely.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Deputy AG. Just a quick question for me. When I'm looking at this, I think it's a section that you referenced here. I know that Mr. Bloomberg out in New York has been using the New York University Law School as kind of a conduit for some of the funding that we're having here in the state of Minnesota. And I think that looks a little bit like, he has bought some influence within the state through the state agency. Would this section disallow that sort of activity in the AG's office?
Deputy Attorney General.
Chair, Senator, the support that the Attorney General's office has received from New York University comes directly from the university, so that's a clarification that I would make to begin. In previous committee hearings, we've talked about not only the impact on the NYU support that currently supports 2 attorneys working in our Environmental and Natural Resources Division on important matters for the state, but it could potentially be read to impact, as I mentioned, the retention of pro bono counsel, law students funded by the American Bar Association, by the 3 law schools in Minnesota, as well as others that seek to place students with outside funding. We've received and solicited funding from philanthropy to begin initiatives that there has not been support for around areas of importance to the state. So all of those matters, we think, could be curtailed, and that's part of the reason why we raised the constitutional concerns.
Senator Johnson.
Well, thank you. And just to be clear, that is through the Bloomberg Philanthropies that New York University is funded that program. So I was correct initially on that as well. But so you're saying that this has a broader impact than what it looks like on paper, but it would be able to curtail some of the activities of influence from outside as well. So maybe what we need to do is tighten it down to hit those activities that we're particularly upset about. So not so much a question, but just a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an amendment related to this. I wonder if we should deal with amendments now while Mr. Keller is still here, or you want to have more testimony first?
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
To Senator Johnson's point.
Oh, Senator Johnson, or Senator Ingebrigtsen, and then we'll
Sorry,
get to the amendments, Senator Marty.
So, to the Deputy Commissioner, advocacy groups, you're telling me that advocacy groups donate money to different lawsuits through the Attorney General?
Attorney General.
Madam Chair, Senator Ingebrigtsen, we've been clear. There's a letter that was provided to the State Government Finance Committee on February 18th that makes clear that the language of the fellows that come from one of the oldest law schools in the United States makes the performance, the control, the supervision, the work of these two fellows solely at the discretion of the Attorney General's office. And again, it comes from the New York University School of Law. On the committee that makes decisions on where these dollars go, there's a number of high-profile individuals from Admiral Mike Mullen, Sam Nunn, Henry Paulson, many members who have the discretion to make funding support in furtherance of New York University Law School's goals.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
So, Madam Chair, maybe this isn't the place, but it just seems Senator Johnson made a good point of political influence here, and I don't know any of those names, and I'm wondering if Senator Kiffmeyer knows anything of that. I'd like some comments with regards to those kinds of dollars coming in. I guess it's not unusual, but it just seems to me to be maybe somewhat questionable.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Ingebrigtsen and members. Yes, that's why the language is here, is because of that concern and that it is unnecessary. So that's why I have the language here. It doesn't stop having students or having attorneys work on issues. It just means that they have to use the funds that are appropriated, not taking money from outside entities that may have conflicting interests or political purposes that they have. It would be similar to if you had the NRA donating money through a philanthropy for a targeted purpose within the Attorney General's office. I wouldn't want that either. So I think that is the concern, and it's written in a way that does not hinder their constitutional authority.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for that concern. I share that as well. So.
Senator Kent, to this point.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, to this point. I am not a lawyer, so I'm going to mess up some of the legal specifics here. But Deputy Attorney General Keller, I recall that, and maybe you can help clarify some of the details, but I believe the Minnesota Senate last year brought in an outside organization, advocacy group, to help support legal efforts on behalf of the Senate involving a lawsuit that involved the Attorney General's office. So I think we should be a little careful how we make those arguments. And if there's any specifics to that one that you want to add, I don't want to put you on the spot, but clearly I don't have all the details accurate. But
Thank you, Senator Kent. Deputy Attorney General. Okay, great. And Senator Marty, before we start amendments, Senator Benson.
Madam Chair, I was to Senator Johnson's point, and I had a question. What other philanthropic organizations are sending money to the Attorney General's office? And you said for state priorities that haven't been funded. So who decides what those state priorities are?
Deputy AG.
Madam Chair, in the letter previously provided on February 18th to Senator Kiffmeyer and her committee, we did detail several of the funding sources that I've already mentioned. One that I've not mentioned, of course, is the federal government that funds our Medicaid fraud and prevention unit. The philanthropic support comes from McKnight, St. Paul Foundations. As we mentioned, there's also support from the 3 local law schools as well as Harvard to pay for fellows.
Senator Benson.
Madam Chair, I just was wondering, for non-funded state priorities, if the legislature didn't fund them, how does the public know what those priorities are? What level of transparency are you giving to the public as to, if our law schools are sending forward fellows, who decides what the priority is?
Deputy AG.
Madam Chair, Senator, the discretion of the Constitutional Office of the Attorney General, as referenced in my previous testimony, is part of the very responsibility of the Attorney General and part of what an Attorney General and any candidate runs on in terms of priorities for the discharge of that office. I don't want to go beyond the facts for these fellows. The matters that they have been working on include some of the most important environmental cases in state court here. If you recall, a couple of years ago, the manufacturer Water Gremlin was in the news. We represented the Department of Health and Labor and Industry with one of these fellows, helping to prevent the tracking of lead dust into workers' homes and their, the high rates of lead exposure that children were exposed to because of that. That was possible, and that's a priority certainly of our representation of that agency. Other matters these fellows have worked on included Minnesota deer farmers versus the DNR, the PFAS contamination ongoing work on behalf of the state regarding PFAS contamination and others.
So, Senator Benson. Madam Chair, I guess the point is, tracking lead is something the Department of Health has been doing. They could have come and asked for an appropriation. And that would have let the public see what the priority was. And so I share Senator Kiffmeyer's concern that directed funds from outside sources might skew the work of the Attorney General's office. And you did say Attorney Generals run on specific priorities as part of their political campaign in their elected office. And so, yes, some discretion as to how they prioritize the resources of the office. But it is concerning that there are outside groups who do have political agendas, who might say, we'll give you this money, but only if you do this work. And that reduces the transparency, I think, that we should expect of all our constitutional officers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Benson. Senator Lopez-Ranson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Kiffmeyer for bringing this bill. I am an attorney and certainly was a legislative fellow, if you will, to work here in the Minnesota legislature when I was in law school. When you're in law school, you're expected to have a clerkship or work in different areas, whether paid or unpaid. It's part of the training to be a lawyer. And many of these fellowships are backed up by nonprofits or fellowships backed up by potentially, as was said, a foundation. So I think we're going into a rabbit hole. I think I understand what you're trying to achieve, Senator Kiffmeyer, with this language, but it's too broad. And I'm sure we have great attorneys that can help narrow it down because, as my colleague Senator Kent mentioned, this own body and the majority party has used outside advocacy groups to help with litigation. So we need to be consistent if we're going to go down this path. we're talking about dollars, and I think if we were actually funding the office in an appropriate level, we might not need so much outside counsel, but it is expensive. There is a cost to justice, and I was just listening to recently, we're talking about workforce shortage. We have workforce shortage in the legal profession. Some of the incoming young attorneys are coming in and being paid $200,000 for law firms. That pales in comparison to what we pay in the AG's office. And I have friends that work there, that have worked there, that have left because they can get a better job somewhere else in a law firm. And we want to attract the best and the brightest. On the environmental issues, Senator Benson, we do not have all the expertise in the state of Minnesota. And that is a fact, and that is why we many times go and ask the federal government for expertise, help on issues of water contamination. I know that for a fact because we have that issue in my district, and I've been very close to that. And they come to us in the legislature to ask for funding to continue to do this work in collaboration with experts outside of the state of Minnesota. So we are talking about money. This is the Finance Committee. This is policy that has has a correlation to money coming into the state, but we have to be very careful how we navigate this and how we, I agree this language should not be in this bill until it's, corrected and very narrow to not having political organizations chime in. I get that. But there might be a perception, but these organizations are oftentimes nonprofits and have their own set of rules as well. So we have to clearly define what we mean when we don't want funding coming into the AG's office from an advocacy group. What that means, we're really trying to target a political group. And many organizations have many arms. So again, I think this is very problematic. I hope it gets either sorted out before we go to the floor or in conference committee, because this can have a very big detriment to the price of justice, to serving justice in our state. But I think I get what you're trying to achieve. This is just not ready for prime time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Ingebrigtsen, then we'll go to amendments.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the indulgence. Quite frankly, I think prime time is already long gone. I have been here for 16 years, and non-ferrous mining has been talked about the whole time, and I don't know how many years before I was here. And I know the Attorney General's office has been hiring attorneys from Washington, D.C. I have no idea what affiliation they have with any organization, with any environmental groups, whatever. However, it just seems really funny that the MPCA, basically the federal government has permitted non-ferrous mining over time and time again. Lawsuits come down and are fought from the funds that come from those particular fees that we just don't know anything about those groups. So I think it really needs to be dug into, and I think this is should be a real high priority. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, in regards to the couple points, the plain language on page 5 and 6 clearly outline that the ability to nothing in this section prohibits the Attorney General from employing and providing office space to an unpaid intern assisting in performing legal services. And then it has a few other qualifiers to it as well, to make sure that it is an intern and not a practicing attorney. And also the sole source of compensation for performing legal services on behalf of the state are from the appropriation. So it does not hinder their authority. It's the source of the money to pay for the work of the state. And every office, I mean, we here in the Senate have a budget, and we have to arrange our priorities to meet the budget here we have in the Senate. And we come before committees as well to justify and do those things. And then we have the important responsibility to set those priorities, understanding that there may be things we would like to do or want to do, but there are priorities and the funding goes with those and should only come from those government appropriations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Kent, and then we'll go to Senator Marty's amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, in looking at this language, my concern also comes from the example, and this was under the previous Attorney General, with the 3M settlement, which was a significant settlement to clean up the water in the East Metro, and relied on outside counsel because it was highly technical, very specific. And I'm just really worried that this is handcuffing in too broad a way, that we need to be really careful with what we do here.
Thank you, Senator Kent. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move the amendment everybody's been discussing before it's been moved, but I'll move to delete Section 6 on page 5 and 6.
Oral amendment, Senator Marty?
Oral amendment, yeah, I didn't have
Senator
that
Marty
right.
moves to delete Section 6 on page 5, starting on line 20.
And Madam Chair, on that, page 5 and 6, Section 6.
And Section, yes.
And Madam Chair, on that, I mean, my first concern is the constitutional one. And the state legislature a number of years ago, before any of our time, decided they didn't like what the state treasurer was doing. And the legislature decided, well, we're just going to strip their money away from them and minimize the office and do that. And the Supreme Court ruled that that was an unconstitutional interference in a jurisdiction of a duly elected constitutional officer. And this seems to be the same thing. Senator Benson, you were asking about how, well, who's determining the priorities here? I mean, the legislature, if we can't spell out what the priorities are, who determines it? And the difficulty is, and Mr. Keller said it, he said that the Attorney General is elected by the voters based on the Attorney General's agenda and priority for the office and how they're going to represent the state. And it's the same thing that the legislature tried to do, and it was thrown out in court many years ago when they tried to, we were unhappy with, the majority in the legislature was unhappy with whatever the state treasurer was doing. But in this case, I mean, the difficulty I'm having with this, and the Attorney General's letter to Senator Kiffmeyer, to your committee a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, points out, and this is the thing I want, because Senator Johnson, a whole bunch of you have been pointing out that, oh, somebody else having undue influence. And the Attorney General points out that the public placement contracts that they sign with these lawyers, they're public data. They state unequivocally that they are, quote, under the direction and control of and owe a duty of loyalty to the office of the Minnesota Attorney General. And the Attorney General says that he alone is the one who has the direction of their work. And the contracts state, quote, Office of Minnesota Attorney General's office retains sole discretion to determine whether to undertake any action, and no part of this agreement is intended to induce the Office of Attorney General to undertake or refrain from taking any action within the purview of the Office of the Attorney General, period. It's the Attorney General, elected constitutional officer, who makes the calls of this. And yes, that some of them come from New York University, fellowship program there. There's some from Harvard. There's some from Mitchell Hamlin. There's some from St. Thomas. There's some from U of M. A lot of these are funded folks who are doing their work, but they're totally, in each of the cases, the contract is that they are responsible to the Attorney General's office, nobody else, nothing else. And the fact that they've been used in lots of cases, I mean, Senator Ingebrigtsen, when you were talking about the attorneys coming in on non-ferrous mining, that was actually a decision the legislature to, in consultation with the Attorney General at the time, because they said, well, we don't have the expertise, so we'll hire somebody else. I think some of us thought the Attorney General's office should do what they did many years in the past, and that was actually build up the expertise, and the Attorney General's office had the expertise. I think it would have been far cheaper for the state to do that than hire somebody from Washington to come in and do it, but that's what the legislature decided at the time. But the idea that we're going to tell the Attorney General's office who's going to be doing their work is a real problem. I think constitutionally it's a problem. It's a problem that we could address if there was somebody else trying to come in and say, hey, we're going to provide some lawyers if you'll do this. But they're not doing that. They're not doing anything of the sort. These are folks coming in from some of the best law schools in the country, some of the best local ones, and they're coming in and doing work that the Attorney General is assigning them, and the Attorney General is a constitutional officer who's been elected by the voters, unlike any of us elected by the statewide voters. And I think that the idea that we're going to step in and tell them how to run their office is both unwise and unconstitutional. And so I move the amendment.
Madam Chair, to that point.
Hold on, Senator Ingebrigtsen. Mr. Bonner, would you please restate the amendment again?
Madam Chair and members, Senator Marty has moved to delete Section 6, beginning on page 5.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, according to Senator Marty, I guess if you're an elected official, you are exempt for any scrutiny.
Madam Chair, I want to object to that. Madam Chair?
Senator Murray.
I want to object to that. It's not what I said. It's not what I believe. It's just totally putting words in my mouth. I did not say any elected official should be beyond scrutiny or beyond criticism. I'm not saying that. I just want to be clear because you totally misstated what I said.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam Chair, I believe Mr. Marty, or Senator Marty, said that the Attorney General has complete authority, and we should all abide by that because he's a state elected official and he should not be questioned. Maybe the word scrutinized is not right, but it seems like we shouldn't be questioning according to Senator Marty, and I'll just leave it with that.
Madam Chair?
Senator Benson, then we'll go to Senator Kiffmeyer.
I'm going to ask folks to oppose Senator Marty's amendment. Senator Marty, I believe you mentioned in your comments that the legislature had actually funded attorneys in the non-ferrous mining case. That was clearly a statement that said this is a statewide priority because the legislature was engaged and provided the additional resources necessary and provided that expertise. Regardless of where you stand, it was the legislature acting to put funds forward, which I believe is completely appropriate in assisting the Attorney General in having the expertise they need for something that they cannot have that level of expertise in their office on every subject that might come forward. The same with lead at MDH. If they needed attorneys who had expertise in tracking that, that would have been a very worthy discussion and probably well supported at the legislature. And I find it interesting that you raised the defunding of the treasurer's position as being unconstitutional, but when Governor Dayton line item vetoed the legislature, nobody seemed to get too upset. And so we actually had to go to court to try to have the right to have staff salaries funded and to have our budget. I don't know how many of you remember that, but it was a hell of a summer while we waited to get back into session and negotiate on that legislation. And so I think we should be pretty cautious about how aggressive we get in saying that we're going to, that there is an inherent constitutional right to this funding, because the Supreme Court actually made it clear that the governor could unallot the legislature, and we just had to make it through until we could no longer pay staff.
Senator Marty.
Madam Chair, I'm not a fan of what the governor did to the legislature at the time. I think it was inappropriate. I think I want to make it clear that Senator Ingebrigtsen, since he was misunderstanding what I was saying, obviously, I was saying that the judgment over what these attorneys that you're calling some special interest attorneys coming in here are solely under the duty of loyalty to the Attorney General's office. In other words, the Attorney General's office tells them what work they're going to do, how they're going to do it, et cetera. And so this idea that somebody else coming with influence is not the case. I'm not saying that you don't have the right, or any of us don't have the right, or we as a legislature don't have a right to say we don't want that. But I'm saying what you can't say is that they are coming in there and they are making decisions about what kind of legal action the Attorney General's office should say. I did not say nobody should criticize any elected official. I don't believe that. I think it's perfectly legitimate to. But in this case, we are taking a legitimate source of people who are working effectively pro bono for the state, whether they were in the pro bono attorneys who were doing work in the Chauvin case, or the ones that are coming in from the law schools, under the direction of the Attorney General to do the Attorney General's work. And to me, I'm fine with the legislature providing more appropriations to the Attorney General's office to do the work. I have no objection to that, but this idea that we are going to step in and tell them that work you might want to be doing, that you have attorneys provided by well-respected law schools, you're not going to be allowed to use them. I think this is overstepping our bounds, and I think I'll stick by the point that it's, I believe, unconstitutional for us to tell Attorney General what they can do and what they cannot do in terms of taking people who have been doing the work they're doing. I mean, we basically have a certain point, and this is where you get to the separation of powers issue. We can reduce the budget of Attorney General's office. We've effectively done that. I think he said that the funding for the prosecution, criminal prosecution, is down like 30% from what it was a number of years ago, just from inflation. And to me, we ought to be funding these issues, but the fact that there are some attorneys provided by law schools under the control of the Attorney General, I think this is just grossly inappropriate language and hamstrings the Attorney General in what they feel is the appropriate thing for the Attorney General to be doing under their constitutional authority. And again, what they did with the state treasurer, the legislature came back a number of years later and proposed an amendment to get rid of the state treasurer's office. Yeah, I mean, that's when the legislature decided we have the ability to do that. We can propose a constitutional amendment. But you're trying to take a constitutional officer and stop them from doing their work. And I just think that the work that these folks have been doing, whether it's on water gremlin or on the PFAS issue or anything else, that what they're doing is appropriate, and this is inappropriate language here for dealing with it.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my question is for Senator Kiffmeyer to the amendment. Senator Kiffmeyer, if I look at lines 528 through 64, I don't see anything here that supports Senator Marty's concern. It allows the Attorney General to still contract with outside counsel. They can still bring in pro bono interns or legal counsel. It just simply says that the monetary amount bargained for must be in an arm's-length transaction, and that the state must specify the authority under which the Attorney General is entering that contract. It seems to be more transparent than what we're seeing today. Senator Kiffmeyer, am I reading that incorrectly, or can you maybe expand on that?
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Pratt. You are correct. That is exactly what is in the language of Section 6. Quite clearly, what you have said is in here. And just also mention the constitutional authority is given to the legislature to do appropriations. That is specific to the legislature, not the executive branch, and not any of the other constitutional officers. So the specific thing here is we are using legislative authority to say the Attorney General's office must use those appropriations and only those appropriations. But it doesn't hinder the choice of what to work to give those employees, and then the other items that Senator Pratt mentioned as well in regards to Medicaid, in regards to any of those things are also in this Section 6 are also clearly authorized as well as the appropriations. So we're not hindering, except for saying the only money you can use is appropriations, and that's our constitutional authority as a legislature.
So,
and I do not support the amendment if you...
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Champion.
Madam Chair, thank you, and thank you, Senators, for all the discussion, and Senator Marty. Senator Kiffmeyer just mentioned, and I think that it's very telling what Senator Kiffmeyer just said. On one hand, there's been an overwhelming discussion about undue influence, and that we should not get money from others and allow them to influence our work. But we're now saying the legislature should be able to only give money if they're willing to do the work the way we say we want them to do the work. And I think that that is an unfair way by which to approach budgeting. We are supposed to make sure that our Attorney General's office, as we do with other agencies, have the resources they need, because they're supposed to stand into place and protect the interests of the public, and that would be Minnesotans. I will say that I used to be at the Attorney General's office some time ago, and I was there under Skip Humphrey and Mike Hatch, and I will say that resources were always scarce and unneeded. But again, colleagues, I would hope that we would not think it is our role, because we hold the purse strings for agencies, to say what they should not do. In fact, we also finance the third branch of government, which is the judiciary. Should we then say what the judiciary should or should not do because we hold the purse strings? I think that's a terrible precedent, and I think if we start going down that road, then we will find ourselves in a deeply political and distorted place. So I would say that we should support the Marty amendment. We do have an elected in the Attorney General, and unless someone can show me, and even if you could, I don't think you would be able to. Even if you're able to show me that you believe that there was undue influence, not from speculation, not from what you believe, because you may not like the outcome. That is like a judge. We may not like all judges, but we cannot say a judge should no longer preside over matters just simply because they did not rule in our favor. So with that being said, Senator Kiffmeyer, I would hope that we would be very cautious when we talk about the legislature having the purse strings, but and then forget that the legal work should be done by the Attorney General's office, who is supposed to represent the interests of the state. And I believe that the integrity of the office, it has been impeccable and intact, and we should fully resource them, but not do anything that hinders or interferes with their ability to do the work that they need to do. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Senator Champion. I do have a question, Deputy Attorney General Keller. We are hearing, members, the opioid settlement bill tomorrow, and I've been able to work with you and the other attorney generals, and it's been really a wonderful experience. How does that work with a settlement account then, Mr. Keller?
Madam Chair,
yes.
Members, all settlements under statute, unless directed otherwise, go to the general fund. It's a bedrock day one principle for all new hires. In the matter of opioids, in 2019, as you well know, Senator, in an effort to be sure that any recoveries in the opioid matters are directed specifically to reducing and addressing, alleviating the harm, excuse me, caused by the defendants, a separate account was set up, so those dollars will go into the opioid settlement account and not the general fund. Again, the point of my previous testimony is we are often misunderstood when there's a case in the news of a settlement of one size or another, that we must be rolling in money at the Attorney General's office, and I can reassure you that that's not the case. If I could, just to some of the comments earlier, I appreciate Senator Marty pointing out the specific language that has been made public over and over again on the policy portion of this bill. I don't want it to be lost on the debate that none of the supplemental requests are in this bill that the Attorney General's office has put forward. Zero. What we're talking about is a policy amendment. At the same time, we're talking about, some are talking about the legislature should be the entity to fund the Attorney General's office and coordinate and work on priorities for the Attorney General's office. We've had zero discussion today, unfortunately, about the merits of the supplemental budget requests to restore and to rebuild our criminal division as Exhibit 1.
Thank you, Deputy AG. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is still, we're still on the amendment,
Yes,
right?
we are.
The oral amendment, so 5 and 6. I just wanted to address what Senator Champion just said. And I think there's a little bit of a nuance here where we're not necessarily directing the priorities of the AG, but we're not through what's going on in these sections. I want to make sure that that's absolutely clear. What we are doing is making sure that the AG's office is representing the interest of the state of Minnesota, not those organizations and groups that are outside that have been able to find a way to come into our state agencies through things like this, through funding like this that might procure the attorneys and not be necessarily accountable to, I know there was some language that was read earlier that said that we're accountable to the AG no matter what, but the reality is if they say, well, you know, if you're not doing what we want, we're gonna pull our funding and these attorneys are gonna go on your payroll. I mean, that's a real threat that can come down to the AG's office if you say that they're strapped for cash is what they are. So in that respect, there could be a significant undue influence. I think this represents what the interests are of the state of Minnesota. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Senator Champion, and then Senator Ingebrigtsen and Senator Lopez Franson, and then we're going to take a vote on this oral amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for these brief comments. I just want to really make sure that the record is clear, is that this is a policy provision, but this policy provision has profound impact and could really undermine what our Attorney General believes is in the best interest of our state. He and his team are in the best position by which to understand and receive all the necessary critical information necessary around any given issue, and then use the best legal minds that have been assembled in order to make sure that we push forward with any case that helps our state. I want to also make sure that we do not equate interest to only mean if it's someone who's in the Attorney General's office, if they believe that there is expertise that would do a much better job and make sure that we are clearly on legal footing if it's someone outside the state. So outside doesn't equate to someone or something being negative or this perception of undue influence. Again, I tell you what the other answer is. Let's fully fund the Attorney General's office, give them the resources that they need so they can cultivate and create space for all the different areas of expertise that they need so they do not have to rely on anyone on the outside. That's the answer. So if we are really that concerned, let's look at that budget, let's fund them the way that we should, and let's make sure that we have enough funding or resources there so we can continue to be proud of our Attorney General's office. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak briefly.
Thank you, Senator Champion. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to Senator Champion, making a comment, and I just want to inquire, and we can do this offline because I know we're moving along. We have to move along here. But he talked about an example of funding coming from outside to fund the judiciary. If you can help me with that, I would be more than interested to find out if there is any money coming from outstate to do the fund the judiciary. I don't believe there is.
Oh, Senator Ingebrigtsen, we aren't going to go down that path either. I think we're going to stay focused here. Senator Lopez Franson, and then we're going to take a vote on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just briefly, just for those of you who are tracking or just joined us, the language on Section 6 that's very, very, very problematic is the very first sentence. I mean, all of it attaches, but the very first sentence on Section 5.21, Subdivision A, except as otherwise provided by law, all legal services of the Attorney General's of the Office of the Attorney General shall be performed exclusively by 1, an employee of the office, 2, an employee of another Minnesota governmental entity as may be provided by law, or number 3, an employee of a federal government entity pursuant to an agreement between the Attorney General and the federal government entity. And it goes on, obviously, but all legal services, that's extreme, that's everything. Everything, from A to Z. From a law student doing research, they can't be an intern, they have to be employed by the Office of the Attorney General. A clerk, legal office secretary who does work, I mean, this is monumental. All of that. We are, in essence, completely changing the operations of the Attorney General's office, and that those duties shall only be exclusively, because it's very clear, and whoever drafted this was basically ironclad. And I don't think this is a complete redo of how the office operates, and has huge implications for our justice system as we know it in Minnesota. And I don't know if that's the intent, Senator Kiffmeyer, of completely changing how that office operates. But I really do think that this is a very, very severe hindrance of our system of justice to protect Minnesotans. And we're not even funding the request that they have submitted to our legislature this year. I just don't think that this is a way we should be moving forward, that the sole source of funding is an appropriation from law. Well, we're not funding it. We're not even hearing it in this committee, in this bill. It's lacking. But we are putting a provision of policy that essentially guts the office. That's very problematic. And members, I think it's a severe disservice to our system of justice in Minnesota as we know it. So members, I encourage a green vote on the Marty amendment, oral amendment.
Madam Chair, yeah, first of all, would like a roll call, and second of all, just want to...
Roll call requested.
Second,
Roll call requested, roll call granted.
Thank you. And second, I want to just point out again that these New York University lawyers, School of Law, lawyers are paid by the university, just as University of Minnesota Law School folks who are working at the Attorney General's office are paid by the law school, and that they are all directed by the Attorney General to do the work of the Attorney General. And as Senator Champion pointed out, if we were to provide a whole lot more resources to the Attorney General's office, they might not do this, but a whole lot of it is trying to recruit young lawyers to get them to experience. And I think that's an important part of this as well. And one of the reasons I think it's nice that they have strong agreements with law schools to have young people be able to do this. So ask for your support for the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Senator Marty renews his motion on an oral amendment to delete Section 6. A roll call has been requested. Roll call granted. Clerk, Ms. Johnson will take the roll.
Chair Rosen?
Chair votes no.
Vice Chair Ingebrigtsen?
No.
Senator Marty?
Aye.
Senator Benson? No. Senator Champion?
Aye.
Senator Johnson?
No.
Senator Kent?
Aye.
Senator Kiffmeyer?
No.
Senator Lopez Franzen?
Yes.
Senator Pratt?
No.
There being 4 ayes, 6 noes, the oral amendment does not prevail. We do have, members, the A20 amendment before us too, a technical amendment. Mr. Boddern, if you'd just like to start explaining this technical. Oh, Ms. James, would you like to, Ms. Stengel.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Stengel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment changes an effective date. There are several provisions in the bill that require ballots to have, there are several provisions in the bill that require ballots to have security markings, and one of those sections requires the Secretary of State to establish a state contract. And in the last version, we put the wrong effective date on this section. That section needs to be effective immediately so they can get that contract going before the election. So that's what this amendment does.
Okay. Any questions on the 820 amendment, members? Senator Kiffmeyer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the 820 amendment, and it is a technical effective date. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Kiffmeyer moves the 820 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted.
Madam
Senator
Chair?
Marty.
Madam Chair, I have the 824 amendment.
Senator Marty has moves the 824 amendment.
And Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead, Senator Marty. Yep.
this is to appropriate $4.1 million for the Attorney General's office for their criminal division hiring. And I think this is very appropriate, given yesterday the committee was dealing with the public safety bill and trying to do things that will help improve public safety here. And I saw that there are, as I think several of you have seen, that there were letters of support from I think it's from Cook County Attorney, the Freeborn County Attorney, Todd County Attorney, Cottonwood County Attorney, and the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, all of which were direct appeals to how important this function is. And I think, as Mr. Keller mentioned earlier, they were down from 12 prosecutors 20-some years ago, now down to 1, which I think has been built up some, but I think this is an urgent need. And apparently in the House, Representative O'Neill was referring to, I think it was Clearwater, I can't remember which county attorney, Clearwater County Attorney, she was expressing her support, her thanks to them for the conviction and sentencing of a criminal who murdered a friend of hers. And the county attorney said that that result was possible because of the support from the Attorney General's criminal division. And that's the type of things we're hearing from. Again, this tends to be rural county attorneys, though bigger counties use them as well. I think this is one of the most important public safety appropriations we could have. And I just urge you to read the letters from the county attorneys and see why they feel this is so urgent. And I urge your support, and we'll ask for a roll call on this one too.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Mr. Newman.
Madam Chair, I think it was your interest in having a discussion about the price of this amendment. It's 4.156 in fiscal year 23, with a corresponding tail of about 8.3. So over 12 years, it would be 12.4, almost $12.5 million.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do not support this amendment. We have funded the Attorney General's office significantly in the last budget cycle. Litigation technology resources, nearly $5 million. Security improvements, over $1 million. Wage theft enforcement, $700,000. Maintain and stabilize experienced county attorney staff, $600,000. That went specifically for staff that the Attorney General could use. And enhanced antitrust resources, nearly $600,000. I do not have the room in my budget, and I feel the county attorney's office, over my leadership in the state government, has greatly taken care of the Attorney General's office already, and all of those attorneys are available to be used at the Attorney General's discretion for the purposes that are named here, but also for the purposes of the office. And I don't support additional money at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Benson.
Madam Chair, I was just going to ask, because I've tried to look for the language that said that this was specifically for the criminal division. This could be used for any attorneys. Is that a correct understanding? Senator Marty?
Senator Bach.
Madam Chair, I wanted to, I'm filling the request of the Attorney General's office. That was their budgetary request. And like when the courts have made their budgetary requests, Senator Limmer's bill did a good job of meeting the court's requests for money. This is one that the Attorney General plans to use for the criminal division. That's, I think they made clear in their budget request, but I'll let Mr. Keller speak to that because I was not privy to what that part of the budget was requesting.
Deputy AG Keller.
Madam Chair, and that's correct. The amendment, as I don't have a copy of Senator Marty's amendment, but there were two components of our supplemental budget request. I believe the issue on the table in the request aligns with our request specifically to improve our capacity to staff requests from county attorneys all across the state on complex prosecutions.
Okay,
And Madam Chair,
Senator Murray.
just to comment, just to read one of the letters from Freeborn County Attorney. We don't reach out to the AG's office every week or every month, but when we do reach out, it's because we desperately need assistance to function. Attorney General is currently assisting our office in two complex cases, would be straining us beyond the breaking point without their help. Attempted murder case involving 3 victims, including local policemen who were shot by the defendant seemingly randomly, and a sexual psychopathic personality commitment that requires expertise we just can't maintain given the frequency with which we face these kinds of challenges. We need the AG, and I strongly support the funding to ensure they have their we have their assistance when the challenges of our varied legal practice drive us to the brink. And again, that's the same kind of letter. There were at least 6 or 7 of those, I think, that came out from county attorneys saying this is an urgently needed request. And again, I'd say this is similar, as Senator Champion made the connection to how we fund the courts. But this is part of it. This is prosecution, and I think it's an appropriate funding request from the Attorney General's office, and I urge us to support it.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Mr. Newman.
So, Madam Chair, given that the committee has delved into this, the Attorney General's request had 2 components to it. One was an operating request of 2.335 with corresponding tails, and then an enhanced criminal enforcement initiative of 1.821. So there were 2 components, and those 2 items from the general fund combined to be the total in this amendment. And if I get that wrong, Mr. Anderson will correct me.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Okay, roll call requested. The clerk, Ms. Johnson, will you please take the roll?
Chair Rosen,
Chair votes no.
Vice Chair Ingebrigtsen,
No.
Senator Marty,
Aye.
Senator Benson,
No.
Senator Champion,
Aye.
Senator Johnson,
No.
Senator Kent,
Aye.
Senator Kiffmeyer,
No.
Senator Lopez Franzen,
Aye.
and Senator Pratt.
No.
There being 4 ayes, 6 noes, the motion does not prevail. The 824 is not adopted. Thank you, Deputy Attorney General Keller. We'll see you tomorrow. With that, we have Commissioner Roberts with us.
Just stay here. Move down.
Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you for your appearance. Thank you for your patience, and welcome to the committee.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, I am Alice Roberts Davis, Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Administration. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share comments on Senate File 3975. As I testified yesterday in the State Government Committee, I am disappointed that additional investments to improve state services to state agencies were not included in the Omnibus State Government Bill. A record budget surplus offers an opportunity to invest in state government to ensure that agencies have the support that they need to best serve Minnesotans. Admin has a wide-ranging set of responsibilities that ultimately touch every part of state government, and our proposed budget changes reflected our efforts to increase capacity for improved services to state agency partners. Specifically, I'd like to highlight that fully funding the 35% state match to the U.S. Department of Defense funds for the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC, was imperative. PTAC offers free counseling, education, training, and guidance for all Minnesota businesses who wish to sell their products and services to state, federal, and local governments. The state's current use of staff time from the Office of State Procurement is not a sustainable solution. Adequately funding the state's match would also support greater statewide coverage by PTAC counselors who live all across the state and support those businesses directly. Additionally, small agencies don't have the staff or capacity to provide human resources or financial services, so they rely on admin for Small Agency Resource Team or SMART to provide those services. Just since 2019, the number of SMART partners served by admin's Human Resources and Financial Management divisions has doubled from 19 to 38 partners. Admin's proposal funds a study to assess service delivery and ensure that small agencies receive the support that they need in the most effective manner. It also enhances admin's operations in the areas of staff retention and accounting services. The Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution, or OCDR, assists communities and public entities to forge wise and durable solutions to seemingly intractable issues. OCDR currently receives more requests for service than the office can accommodate, and the volume of requests steadily increases each year. Admin proposed increases would support additional capacity to help the OCDR meet the current demand and services from state agencies, local governments, and the legislature. Admin's Fleet Services Division is experiencing temporary changes in fleet usage and sales cycles due to increased telework and global supply chain issues. This will result in admin collecting lower revenues than necessary to fund operating expenses. Admin's request stabilizes the fund while we continue to improve the fleet with lower life cycle vehicles and vehicles with greater fuel efficiency. It is also important to support and implement an update to the Private Cemeteries Act, which would modernize terminology, clarify authority over cemetery assessments, and reflect federal law. Executing these updates will require additional capacity in the Office of the State Archaeologist to coordinate this work. Additionally, it is the legislature's responsibility to cover the costs related to the passage of Chapter 32 earlier this session. This law extended the presumption that certain occupations were infected with COVID-19 on the job. Providing the funding upfront allows admin's Risk Management Division to pay workers' compensation claims directly for agencies and simplifies the claim processing by limiting the number of transactions required. Admin's other budget requests strive to support enhanced state government services that will better serve Minnesotans, including a study for disparities in state procurement, improving grants administration oversight, eliminating the fee to request open meeting law advisory opinions, streamlining data practices challenges appeals, and offering an enterprise translation service. Also, I'd like to encourage the chair to add our policy proposals to the Omnibus bill. These are good governance measures with no fiscal impact that help admin assist the enterprise. The technical and policy changes in Senate File 3729 will help admin streamline our work and correct obsolete statutes. Finally, admin's proposal to enhance the state's small business program for certified targeted group businesses, economically disadvantaged or women or veteran-owned businesses in Senate File 3733 would give more flexibility to agencies, help to grow the pool of vendors that do businesses with the state, and clarify procurement language. I do appreciate the inclusion of flexibility for buildings to use renewable energy generated off-site to meet the Sustainable Building 2030 requirements. The language in Admin Senate File 3655 would complement these provisions by providing additional options for projects. And the Omnibus bill includes significant requirements for admin related to grant oversight. While the department is committed to working toward language that can be effectively implemented, the bill provides no funding to support the additional required duties. The oversight envisioned in this language cannot effectively be administered without additional capacity in our current one-person Office of Grants Management. I thank you for your consideration I look forward to working with Senator Kiffmeyer through the committee bill process.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberts.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any questions for the Commissioner? I do not see any at this time. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. Further comments, questions, amendments?
Madam Chair,
Senator Benson.
I have the A21.
Senator Benson moves the A21 amendment.
Members, it's not a private amendment. It should be something that was available to be passed out. Not been posted.
We don't have it, Senator Benson.
I apologize. I'm going to withdraw the A21 and see if staff can get that to council appropriately.
Senator Benson withdraws the A21 amendment. Do we have any other amendments?
We do have it.
Oh, you do have it.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, and this is not meant to be a surprise, there was language from a bill that had been laid over in State Gov, one of my pieces of legislation to put some restrictions on those entities who received a significant portion of their funding from state grants. And as language is introduced and becomes transparent to the public, there need to be changes. So what the A21 does, and Senator Kiffmeyer was shown this amendment, and I believe she's amenable to it, but certainly to her discretion. We ensure that this grants restriction doesn't apply to hospitals. And for those of you watching, yes, we are expanding this to nursing homes and assisted living facilities. If you're licensed by MDH, there's very little likelihood that grants will be misappropriated to other sources, particularly when it's medical assistance funding, Merck funding, et cetera. Then we move to, we eliminate the salary limit. That's just too complicated for us to figure out at this point. We eliminate some notice to the legislature because that the information would be publicly available, but it does add cost to this bill. And then for the purposes of the Department of Admin, as we look at page 12, line 28, instead of it being the Department of Admin giving notice of fraud, it would be the fiscal agent. They would be the most likely to know. The intent of this language is that if an entity is receiving 50% or more of its money and it's not duly licensed by the Minnesota Department of Health, that entity would have to meet a higher standard. I did talk to the Department of Administration. They have further suggestions that are not incorporated in this amendment. And so, Madam Chair, I will continue to do work on this provision. But as I am learning, the Department of Admin actually gave me the section of statute that they use, 16B.97. And as I'm reading it, many of the things that are in there, had they been applied at the Department of Education, would have actually prevented some of the issues that we had with Feeding Our Futures. This isn't targeting Feeding Our Futures. I had been working on something like this in 2013, and then when we moved into the majority, it just did not end up being a priority. So I hope some semblance of this accountability for those entities that get more than 50% of their revenue from state funds will move forward. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do support the 821 amendment for all the good reasons Senator Benson said.
Okay. Questions? Thoughts? Okay. Senator Benson moves the A21 amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The A21 is adopted. Further amendments? I see none. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to introduce the A25 amendment, please.
Senator Kent moves the A25 amendment. Okay, Senator Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The A25 amendment addresses what was discussed earlier in testimony, I believe, from Commissioner Showalter, and it has to do with the minute services and cybersecurity. As we know, and we're hearing more loudly and more clearer than ever, the risks of hacks and cyber attacks are at a peak moment. And so what this amendment would do is add $359,000 into the current biennium and increase the amount in the tails from $4 million to $5,435,000. And this would be cybersecurity and grant program, cybersecurity improvement grant program that would support addressing the cybersecurity risks and cybersecurity threats to information systems owned or operated by or on behalf of state, local, or tribal governments. And it is a matching program, matching grant program. And members, I think this is really important and a relatively modest amount. And I know we've been able to increase above the guidelines in other bills, and I hope we can consider doing that in this case.
Thank you, Senator Kent. I believe we'll go to Mr. Eichten, Assistant Commissioner, a minute. And you'll have to reach fairly far there to get that microphone, Mr. Eichten. Thank you.
Madam Chair, for the record, John Eichten, Deputy Commissioner with Minnesota IT Services. Would like to offer our support for the amendment and thank Senator Kent for bringing this forward. Our federal government partners at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, are stressing the importance of preparing for, responding to, and mitigating the impact of cyber attacks and calling for vigilance in the face of evolving cybersecurity threats. And while those threats might not be directly targeted at the state of Minnesota, we've seen in the past, such as in the cyber attacks that occurred in 2017 against Ukraine, that even if they're not targeted at a particular government or organization, they have the potential to leak out and present clear risk to the continued operations of services that Minnesotans rely upon in their daily lives. So this program would pull down, the governor's proposed investment of $4 million would pull down roughly $18 million in federal cybersecurity funding, 80% of which would be required to benefit local government. So Minute would work with a group representing tribal government, city government, county government to put together a state plan for distribution of those dollars to state and local entities. Happy to answer any questions that the
Thank you,
committee
Mr. Eichten. Yes, we'll have questions. Mr. Newman first, though.
Madam Chair, members, this would increase the appropriation by 1.794 in fiscal 22 and 23, and it looks like the tail would be $2.331 million, based on the governor's rec.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Senator Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, Mr. Eichten. Last year, there was a Blue Ribbon Commission recommendation on cybersecurity. Was that funded?
Mr. Eichten.
Madam Chair, Senator Benson, my recollection is that their primary recommendations related to cybersecurity were around the designation of critical infrastructure. I don't recall a specific funding recommendation for cybersecurity. There were some broad recommendations around agencies taking a look at what gaps may exist in their overall service delivery and security posture and bringing those needs forth through the governor's budget development process. But I don't recall a specific dollar amount recommendation from the Blue Ribbon Council. Okay. They did offer support, though, for continuing to measure our investment as a percentage of total IT spend and using that as a marker to ensure we're investing appropriately relative to our peers in other governments and other sectors that have similar security needs, regulatory compliance needs.
Thank you.
Senator Benson.
Madam Chair, that peer management is important. I think the number was about $3.1 million that was put into cybersecurity, but if that's incorrect, please correct me. And then there were some base grants given, so that would put us about $1 million was put in last year. Is that correct?
Mr. Eichen?
Madam Chair, Senator Benson, I'm not sure if you're referring to appropriations that might have been made to other state agencies or to the Secretary of State's office that had cybersecurity elements to them. Minute did not bring forth any request in the 2021 session directly related to cybersecurity. We did in the 2019 session bring forth a $20 million investment request that was funded at the $5 million level per year.
Okay.
Senator Benson?
So, Mr. Chair, there has been some attention paid to cybersecurity, and there is a % benchmark that is best practice in the industry because you're doing a peer comparison. And so we do have some commitment to cybersecurity that has been funded, I know, over an extended period of time. I remember when Senator Kiffmeyer first got State Gov, we had a $25 million request. Commissioner Busey was still here then. And that was something that the Dayton administration actually opposed. And so there's been significant progress, I think, in hardening our security systems. And so with respect to Senator Kiffmeyer, I'm going to vote no on this. I just wanted some understanding at the committee of the commitments that have been made and that it is part of a percentage of IT spend, that there's an expectation that there will be cybersecurity work done.
Thank you, Senator Benson. Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Kiffmeyer on the A25.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not support this amendment. And Madam Chair, also to recognize that the reference to $5 million, an offer was made for $20 million to the governor's office. And he refused to do that and preferred instead to have the agencies get their operating increases instead. So what we were left with was $5 million for cybersecurity. But just so we know, the offer was made for the full $20 million. And at this time, last year, Minute, also the Blue Ribbon Council recommendations were funded for over $4 million. So we have paid a great deal of attention in this area already. And I think with the funds that they currently have, that they will be able to function with those to do right by the people of Minnesota. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. I see Senator Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is probably a question for Deputy Commissioner Eichen. So if we don't put up the state match, then we can't draw down these funds to help the local governments? Is that my understanding of how this works?
Mr. Eichen.
Madam Chair, Senator Kent, yes, my understanding would be that your statement is correct. Without the $4 million state match, we would give up on the ability to bring down the $18 million in federal money, 80% of which must go to benefit local government.
And Madam, a follow-up. And so with regard to what Senator Kiffmeyer was just talking about with discussions and agreements, when was this federal funding made available?
Mr. Eichen.
Madam Chair, Senator Kent, this funding was included in the recently passed infrastructure bill. I can't recall exactly. I believe it was 2021. So I believe the conversations being referenced are from the Dayton administration would have preceded the creation of this program by the federal government by many years.
Thank you, Deputy
Senator
Commissioner,
Kent.
and thank you, Madam Chair. And that's the point, right? I mean, we are in an era today that is very different, frankly, than it was even 6 weeks ago. And the concerns have been recognized by the federal government and included in the IAJA. And as we are doing in other committees around the Senate, we are responding. And I think it is short-sighted to think that because we were okay a few years ago or even a year ago with the setup, that we should, and our local governments who are struggling. If I listen to my counties and cities, they have enough issues already. So to miss out on this opportunity on their behalf, I think is irresponsible for the Senate.
Thank you, Senator Kent. So the enactment date, Mr. Nauman said it was November 15th of 2021, for your information.
Thank you.
And members, I do think we are going to have a hearing on the IIJ funds that are coming, the federal funds coming in. We need to get a better grasp of what is out there. This is Mr. Eichten didn't realize that you wanted to testify. I think we need to drill down a little bit more about this request, and I would concur with Senator Benson and Senator Kiffmeyer on this. I think it's premature at this point to support this. This is we need to get a better idea of what's in the bill, what is the match, what is it used for ongoing. I was going to interact with the minute budget going forward, all those questions. So,
Madam
with
Chair.
that, Senator Kent.
Roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted on the A25. Ms. Johnson, would you please take the roll?
Chair Rosen,
Chair votes no.
Vice Chair Ingebrigtsen,
No.
Senator Marty, Senator Benson,
No.
Senator Champion,
Aye.
Senator Johnson,
No.
Senator Kent,
Aye.
Senator Kiffmeyer,
No.
Senator Lopez Franzen,
Aye.
Senator Pratt.
No.
There being 4 ayes, 6 noes, the A25 is not adopted. Further amendments?
Madam Chair,
Senator Kent.
I would like to offer the A26 amendment.
Senator Kent moves the A26 amendment. Senator Kent, do we have that? We do now, and it will be posted briefly. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was definitely addressed in the testimony from Commissioner Showalter. This would make sure that we are providing the needed services from MMB. All 3 branches of our government use the same accounting, procurement, learning, data reporting, payroll, and benefits and recruiting systems. But since 2015, there's been an 80% gap every year between the funds that they need to take care of these systems and the funds that they're receiving. And an investment through the 24-25 fiscal years, along with modifications to the statewide system account, will ensure critical stability, security, and plans for strategic investments. It costs $22 million each year for MMB to maintain, operate, and enhance statewide finance and IT systems, but under current statute, state agencies pay just $10 million towards that expense. The Office of the Legislative Auditor and an external consultant have agreed that the statewide system account, which will be out of money in fiscal year '23, needs stable funding in order to enable strategic investment. Waiting to upgrade the data warehouse is no longer an option. Vendors don't support the old software, so they can't even do the fixes. The system needs to be upgraded now, or employees won't be able to serve Minnesotans. The data warehouse, and this goes back to some of the security discussions we were just having, keeps unauthorized users out and lets authorized users in to get data for all state data needs, including the Minnesota Open Checkbook, COVID-19 spending, the annual comprehensive financial report, and thousands more. Again, I know guidelines have been established for each of the committee chairs, but this is an important step to protect this very critical infrastructure of our state government and the work that we do on behalf of Minnesotans. And so, members, I encourage an aye on the A26 amendment.
Thank you, Senator Kent. Mr. Nauman.
So, Madam Chair, this amendment increases general fund appropriations by $6.285 million in fiscal '23 and sets a base of an additional $17.8, almost $17.9 million. So the total 3-year effect would be 24.2.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not support the A26 amendment. I do not have the funds and my guidelines, and so I would like to have the committee vote no.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Kemp.
roll call, please.
Roll call requested, roll call granted on the A26. Ms. Johnson.
Chair Rosen,
Chair votes no.
Vice Chair Ingebrigtsen,
No.
Senator Marty,
Aye.
Senator Benson,
No.
Senator Champion,
Aye.
Senator Johnson,
No.
Senator Kent,
Aye.
Senator Kiffmeyer,
No.
Senator Lopez Franzen,
Aye.
Senator Pratt.
No.
There being 4 ayes, 6 noes, the A26 is not adopted. Further amendments. Senator Marty.
Madam Chair, no amendments, just a general comment that is, we're talking about, quote, surplus money and the majority's desire for tax cuts, that we are underfunding some essential things from cybersecurity to just the general operation of state government, from the lack of prosecutors. We're underfunding things seriously and hoping nothing bad happens. And I keep thinking that this is a very short-sighted decision, and just like that cybersecurity thing, yeah, it's not a problem until it's a problem, and then it's a big one. Oops, we should have done better. I think that these are boring to the public. They may not be tracking what's happening with cybersecurity or state government operations, but we're making them much worse. You're setting them up to fail, and then you attack government for being inept at doing things because you're not providing the funding. And when, again, going back to some of the other amendments, I mean, the county attorneys, they're begging for help on this, and we're saying, nope, we're not going to give you it. And so I guess I'm just frustrated that this bill is failing to do things because Senator Kiffmeyer's, if they're not targets or priorities or whatever you're calling them, there's a big problem here. So I don't have any more amendments on this, but I think the bill is headed the wrong direction.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this final comments?
Yes, final
okay,
comments.
all right.
Please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think this is a bill that conforms with the guidelines that were established for my committee. We use them as directed. I think that the language that we do have in this bill has been carefully written and thoughtful in regards to a variety of the areas, and I'm asking for your support. And I vote yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Okay, Senator Kiffmeyer, would you like to move that Senate File 3975 as amended be laid on the table?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes.
On that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Okay, members, we are going to go into recess, and when we come back at 1 o'clock, we will do Senate File 1154, the transportation bill. With that, we are in recess.